Joining us now, our senior correspondent covering the 2018 Virginia General Assembly live in Richmond, Tommie McNeil. Tommie, great to have you.
Morning, John. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we got a lot going on, Tommie. Let's just start pure raw politics, and then we'll get into some of the nuances going on in the General Assembly. Now, already shaping up. I mean, we're like, what, a week or two into the General Assembly, just got a new governor. Already, right, we have Democrats positioning for who's going to be the Democratic nominee for governor in 2021 because, as everybody knows, in Virginia, one-term sayonara, you're out. So, right away, there's already a little positioning. Now, last night I'm at an event by the Chamber of Commerce. By the way, the Virginia Chamber of Commerce yesterday inducting our own Susie Kelly from Chesapeake as their president for 2018, and Susie Kelly, the executive that runs Joe Kell. She's also a member of City Council in Chesapeake, is the new El Presidente. So I want to give a shout out to her. So I'm there yesterday, and I have a chance to talk to Mark Herring, looking dapper as always. Now you got Herring, the Attorney General. Well, you know, he wants to run for governor, right? He's been there 2 terms. Now you got LeVar Stoney, the mayor of Richmond. He wants to be the second black governor after Wilder. You know, he wants to run. He's got a little base there. Then you've got Justin Fairfax. He just got elected Attorney General, African American. He wants to run for governor. All Democrats. What's the scuttlebutt?
All right, so just backing up a little bit. So you've got Fairfax, who is the lieutenant governor, LeVar Stoney, who is the mayor of Richmond, and then you've got Mark Herring. And this banter is on the heels of an editorial about there being an inevitable showdown between Fairfax and Stoney to be the first, elected African Americans to hold a governor's office since Doug Wilder. Now, I didn't get a chance to talk to the lieutenant governor about this, but I was able to talk to Mayor Stoney about this. And, he pretty much says, you know what, there's no news there. He respects and he supports Fairfax, but honestly, it's just too early. He's only been in office for a year. Fairfax just took the mantle, recently. And they're both probably pretty focused on the jobs at hand. If neither of them do well in their current positions, they really aren't in a position to talk about running for governor. So they've got to prove themselves there. And Mayor Stoney said, listen, I support Justin Fairfax and whatever he's doing right now, but we're focused on the job. Now, with that said, as you already alluded to, this still could set up a rematch between Justin Fairfax and the current Attorney General Mark Herring. Why? Because typically the Attorney General and the Lieutenant Governor duke it out to run for governor. All right? So in this case, it would be a primary since they're both Democrats. We saw in the past, we saw.
Right.
You there?
Yeah, go ahead,
John. Okay. All right. So we saw in the past elections, Mark Herring and Justin Fairfax go head to head for the role of Attorney General, which Herring won. But then you come back 4 years later, and Fairfax decides, you know what? I'm not going to challenge Herring. I'm going to run for lieutenant governor, and they're getting along apparently just fine. So something else that was pointed out to me is that you don't see Justin Fairfax and Mark Herring duking it out or being nasty or sniping at one another. So why would you expect LeVar Stoney and Justin Fairfax to duke it out and go head to head? This could be a 3-way race. It could be a 4-way race. A lot of things could happen. You could also have a situation in which, Justin Fairfax decides, I'll stay in my position and run for lieutenant governor another time. Mark Herring can run. If LeVar Stoney wants to run, he can do that. You never know. LeVar Stoney could run for lieutenant governor, and Justin Fairfax could move to another position. You just don't know. There are just too many moving components to speculate right now. So everything remains to be seen.
I do agree with you that those are the big 3, right? There's no question about it. I mean, look, LeVar Stoney wanted
Absolutely.
to be mayor of Richmond for one thing. He wants to be governor. And he thinks one day he can run for president. So we know what that deal is. And look, I mean, Fairfax, like you said, I mean, he ran for attorney general, got beat by a hair, almost upset Mark Herring, who was the favorite. You expect the deal's going to be made, just like Herring and Ruff. Northam made a deal this time that Herring wouldn't challenge him for the nomination. Ended up Perriello did. But then you've also got Tom Perriello. He's not going away either. He's coming back.
He's not going anywhere. There isn't a lot of talk right now about Tom Perriello, but you're right. He's not going anywhere. He ran against Northam, and the Democrats saw him as a big threat. He didn't move the ball as much as they anticipated, his campaign anticipated. But I want to point something else out. And, we talked about this on your show, and that is you have former Governor Terry McAuliffe, who has presidential aspirations. So, LeVar Stoney is mayor of Richmond. He is McAuliffe's former Secretary of the Commonwealth. There's a possibility that if you see a Terry McAuliffe presidential administration, you could see LeVar Stoney move in that direction. That's a whole another conversation.
That's another conversation. I mean, McGenius is a long way from being the Democratic nominee. I mean, I think he's going to be formidable. I don't think the Democrats are going to nominate. I think they're going to end up nominating the most anti-Trump, anti-this, anti-that person they can. But look, I don't write McAuliffe off because I think, he'll come in the top 4 or 5 in Iowa, and he'll duke it out with Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire. And I think, if he doesn't beat Sanders there, I mean, he's going to be right there with him because his message there is going to resonate. So I just wouldn't count him out. But look, I didn't back LeVar Stoney for mayor, as you know. We backed Joe Morrissey. And Stoney and I have never had a particularly good relationship, to put it mildly. But now he's going to an immigrant rally, and he's pushing for undocumented immigrant driver's licenses.
What transpired yesterday was it was a busy day, and the segues to Mayor Stoney coming out to a rally that was held on Capitol grounds. The three main issues were a $15 an hour minimum wage, health care reform, and the biggest was driver's license access for undocumented immigrants. Now, that particular bill was heard in committee, and it was shot down. All right, but there has been this ongoing push to get undocumented immigrants' driver's license access. And, I talked to a few lawmakers and those who support the bill, those who are against this particular type of legislation. And, those who support it say, there's too much being lost here. There's too much at risk by not giving undocumented immigrants some type of, privilege, driving privilege, although they're not here legally. Okay. On the other side, they're saying, you know what? Illegal is illegal. Undocumented is undocumented, and the law is the law. Mayor Stoney is a strong proponent of this particular legislation of giving these undocumented immigrants, the access. He was very excited about a $15 an hour minimum wage, and he was also, of course, again, talking about the former McAuliffe administration. He has been a strong proponent for health care reform and expanding Medicaid. So he moved in that direction yesterday.
Let's get to the issue of giving somebody that is here illegally a driver's license. Okay, how does that in Virginia? Is that something that the General Assembly would have to pass? Is it a governor's edict? I mean, if that were to come to pass in the Commonwealth of Virginia, how would that get to be there? How would that become law?
I think that it would have to obviously go through the legislative process. It would be something that would be signed by Governor Northam, and I don't think that's a piece of legislation he would object to. I think that from there it would have to be implemented through the DMV. I don't know how soon it would be implemented. I'm assuming, it would be first of the fiscal year type deal if it was something that would pass, but I don't think it has a chance of passing this particular year unless there are some, I think in future sessions you may have someone amend the bill and then it may move forward then, and they've got time to do so.
What about minimum wage, $15? I mean, that's not going anywhere either, is it?
No, I was talking to one of the bill sponsors, Delegate Marcus Simon. We talked about him before. I've talked to him before about this. And again, he still holds out hope that this bill will pass. It's still and Rules Committee. It hasn't died. They had an opportunity to kill the bill altogether last Friday. They didn't do it. And again, he thinks that's something that could be used as a negotiating tactic during budget negotiations. So it's not dead yet. It's still a possibility.
Well, we'll see what plays out. Tommie, I know yesterday you went to the Workers' Rights News Conference, and then another conference on the 94th District tie canister, pick it out of a hat, draw straws debacle. What exactly went down in those two meetings?
All right, so you've got several pieces of legislation coming primarily from the Democratic side. You've got the Workers' Rights Bill. And I want to also throw out there that Speaker Kirk Cox, a Republican, did announce that they're instituting a paid parental leave policy for House of Delegates employees. Well, the response as soon as that went out from those who have been pushing for, leave, that type of leave, have said, you know what, this is the time to start moving on some of these other pieces of legislation related to this and some workers' rights. So, for example, you've got one particular bill that they talked about yesterday that repeals the prohibition on state agencies from entering into project labor agreements. You've got another one, which I think is very interesting. Delegate John Ward spoke very passionately about this yesterday. There is actually a law in the books that exempts service jobs. These are jobs that are like newsboys, shoe shine boys, farm laborers, historically held by people of color. And there is something on the books in Virginia that prevents them from making more than like $2 an hour. Okay. And so they're saying that the only way that they actually make a living, and they also talk about, some of these service workers like waiters and waitresses. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but, there is something where waiters and waitresses are paid like $2 an hour and they make their money in tips. So it's up to the person being served to pay their wages for that day, that week. And I think she said something like, as long as they make like $30 a month, it's totally legal. So they want to change it. They say it's an archaic law that was part of the Jim Crow era, and it's something that needs to change as soon as possible. You've got some other pieces of legislation. I'm trying to think of some that come to mind immediately. I'll move on to the legislation by Marcia Price. As you know, there was a huge debate, and still, a lot of people aren't happy about this. You had the House race that was decided by lot, where the name was drawn out of a bowl. And you've got 24,000 disenfranchised voters in that district who say, listen, I went out and voted. And one person spoke passionately about this yesterday. I went out and voted. I voted in every single election. Yes, it was close, but you have 24,000 people, both Democrats and Republicans, who went to the polls. It was a tie. We want another election. We don't want this decision to be decided by having a name drawn out of a bowl. That's ridiculous. So that's what this particular piece of legislation would do. It would immediately call for another election if it ended up in a tie. And so that's going to be heard in committee. They're going to talk about some of the financial impacts of this type of legislation, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, well, that's like, who cares? Because, this happens once in your lifetime. There'll never be another tie. I mean, the odds against it are infinitesimal. It's like betting on the Cleveland Browns to win the 2019 Super Bowl, right? It's not going to happen. So, whatever. I mean, these are just things to do, and, so they get a headline out of it. I do want to talk about some of the marijuana-related bills, Tommie, but before we do that, I've gotten a bunch of text here from people about getting driver's licenses, allowing illegal people that have come to the country illegally, broke the law, and they're in Virginia, and giving them a driver's license, Virginia, and they're lawbreakers, right? I mean, is there a bill that's been surfaced for that? And if you don't know, maybe, we can talk about that tomorrow, but is it just something that, like, there's a rally and people want that, like LeVar Stoney, or is there actually a bill which has been submitted to turn that into law?
Oh, yeah, there was a bill submitted and it was shot down yesterday.
Do you remember who the author on that was?
I don't recall. I don't recall, to be honest with you. I didn't talk to the bill sponsor about that, but that was the reason why they rallied.
That's why they had the rally. So there was an actual bill put forth in order to give people that are here illegally driver's license in Virginia, like they do in California, for example. And of course, we've seen what's happened there. They start with a driver's license. Now they're enrolling them to vote and putting them on the voter rolls automatically without checking the box that you're a U.S. citizen, which sidesteps the fact that if you do vote, it's not a felony because you've not checked any box. I mean, the whole thing is it really is mind-boggling what is happening here with that. So I'm glad that went down. Let's get to some of the marijuana-related bills. I don't see a pathway here, Tommie, for legalization of marijuana in Virginia right now. So for the purposes of time, we got 2 minutes. Just give us a quick update on some of the other marijuana, cannabis-related bills and kind of an update. Where are they?
All right. So there are several bills out there that deal with both medical marijuana and decriminalizing the possession of small amounts of marijuana. So, there was a loss for proponents of legalization. A bill was killed yesterday in committee to decriminalize small amounts of marijuana, but there was also a victory for proponents because there's a bill that allows for the THC oil. That's the main component in marijuana. That's moving forward where doctors would be able to prescribe this for medical use. So, we'll see how well that bill advances. And I believe that there are still some other similar bills out there floating around.
Is that the Dr. Siobhan, she's a Republican, by the way, Dr. Siobhan Donovan bill? I think that's the bill where Senator Donovan wants doctors to be able to prescribe any number of marijuana or cannabis things in order, if they feel that's in the best interest of their patient. Is that the one that's getting some movement?
I believe that is the bill. I believe that if it's not her bill, it is a bill that's a companion bill or an identical bill. But yes, it's along those same lines.
All right, Tommie, what are you going to be covering today? What can we look forward to tomorrow?
All right, so we've got a couple of things going on. We've got Senate education. We've been talking about health care. So I think happening right now in Senate education, there are a number of health care Medicaid expansion bills that are being talked about, discussed. The Republican House and Senate leaders are holding a news conference later this morning. They're discussing issues for the House and Senate privileges and elections committees. And then the House Democrats come back again today. Yesterday, again, they talked about workers' rights. Today, they talk about some education bills. So I'll be following all of those.
All right. We're out of time. I want to thank Tommie McNeil for being with us here on the John Fredericks Radio Network.